Jane Velez Mitchell, Jane Unchained Live Talk. I am so honored, totally honored to have on our show Rob Cogswell. He is legendary, a legendary undercover investigator who has gone into the most dangerous places, mink farms, laboratory breeding facilities where monkeys are being exploited, all sorts of places. And he has been an unsung hero for our movement for decades. Now he is coming out of the shadows into the sunlight with a new project. Welcome from London, England, Rob Cogswell. Tell us what you're up to.
Thank you very much, Jane. It's an absolute honor and privilege to actually be on your show. I've watched your show and seen some of the people that have come before me, and I'm in an esteemed company, I'm sure. So it's great to be here. I'm starting a new, I've been vegan for 37 years. I've been in the movement for 37 years. I became vegan in 1983, and I was campaigning for the rights of animals that long ago when things were very different from what they are now. Very difficult to get vegan food in the shops. The shelves were bare for vegans, and now they're plentiful. So I think then when we started, we were laying down the seed or the foundations, if you wish, for what we are reaping now. And the vegan movement is becoming bigger and bigger every day, every year. You know, in the UK alone, there's 600,000 vegans in the UK, and that's up from 150,000 vegans in 2006. I think the US has an estimated 9.7 million. And again, in the last 15 years, that has risen from 219,000. So people are becoming vegan for all different reasons, whether it's the animals, whether it's the environment, or whether it's the health aspect. I want to capture all those people and turn them vegan and create a better world for all.
So we're going to talk about your new project, which is a podcast. And I'm very honored to be on it. Tomorrow, I'm going to record with you Life on the Veg, which is a very clever title. Yes. And we're going to talk also about your entire new social media, Vegan Edge campaign, your website, which is veganedge.co.uk. You're based in England. And there's the website. But I want to show folks what you have been up to for decades. Again, a vegan for longer than most of us. Remember, I'm 24 years. You're 38 years, you said?
37.
37 years. Wow, yeah. That's extraordinary. So you really have the big picture of how fast this movement has grown. For those who get impatient, you can help us with that. But first, I looked at the videos you sent over, and some of them are so gut-wrenching. And you risk your life to go into these mink farms and go into these horrors. I'm going to just show one. It's a grainy video of a laboratory monkey breeding facility. And it captures the agony that you've had to endure, bearing witness to the horrors that happen to animals in today's world. And to see the horror on that primate's face, a horror and terror as these people are tattooing these animals. And this is happening by the millions, especially now with COVID, because we abused animals. Now we feel entitled to take animals from the wild in places like Mauritius and send them to laboratories where they are tortured in turn, all because we initially tortured animals. Obviously, this is a zoonotic disease that jumped from animals to humans. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about that and why people say, well, it's a pandemic. We've got to get all these monkeys. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. When if we had not tortured animals to begin with, we wouldn't have a pandemic. If we were living in a plant-based world, we wouldn't have a pandemic.
Yeah, I think that's the problem. I mean, with that monkey, you saw that baby monkey being tattooed. What you didn't see is just minutes earlier, it had been ripped from its mother's breast. and then just obviously tattooed. It's obviously terrified as it's been tattooed. It's obviously painful being tattooed, especially on that particular part of the body. And going back to your question regarding, we're in a vicious circle here. We seem to think that we can abuse animals and we can eat animals. Then we get a pandemic like COVID-19, and then we think we can get ourselves out of it by testing on animals. And obviously we need to break that vicious cycle. We need to get away from using animals for whatever reason. I've been in the movement long enough, and I campaign for both sort of animal rights, anti-vivisection and veganism. And if we don't get out of this cycle, I did think that, with the COVID at the beginning of the year, when it all exploded, that people would start to think differently and would start to reassess how they live their lives. But again, we're in this country anyway, and the rest of Europe, we're in a second wave, and I think it's getting through. I think it is getting through, but the problem with the human race is things take a long, long time. As you said, I've been in the movement for 37 years, and I've seen a lot of change. I haven't seen as much change as I would like, but we are getting there. And do we need another wake-up call? COVID-19 is quite meek compared to some of the possible pandemics out there, and it only takes one more pandemic to really put this planet and the human population at real risk from extinction.
Well, there are protests happening like this one in San Francisco. Thousands of people marching for animal liberation. People willing to get arrested and bearing witness outside slaughterhouses like this one in Oakland, California, where hundreds and hundreds of people gathered. But there's still a societal, largely controlled by the mainstream media, a societal refusal to look at what we are just begging people to understand, that we are not pure victims in this case. We're participants. That if we had lived in a plant-based society, we wouldn't have this pandemic. And that to avoid future pandemics, we can transition very easily now to a plant-based society because we have everything in faux alternatives. There's vegan mayonnaise, vegan butter, incredible vegan cheeses, vegan meats, Beyond Meat, Impossible Burger, the list goes on and on. As they say, anything you can cook, we can cook vegan. Do you in London, which is considered the premier vegan city, and then of course there's Berlin, which is extraordinary. I was there a couple of years ago and it blew me away. I'm here in Los Angeles. It's a vegan mecca, but there's a large parts in between those major capitals that are maybe not as inundated with the message. Where do you see the vegan movement today, Rob? You go back 37 years at least. You can give us the big picture.
Well, I mean, just for one statistic that speaks volumes is that in 2019, a quarter of all products released in the UK were labeled vegan. I'm not saying that the supermarkets are doing it for the ethical reasons, but to be perfectly honest, I don't really care why they're doing it. I think what we have to do is get a tipping point where there's, where the more vegans there are, the more products are being supplied to vegans. Therefore, the products become cheaper. And as you rightly said, there's so many products out there now that actually just replicate what people love to eat, whether that's the cheese, whether that's different types of meat. I'm not going to lie to people and say that it's exactly the same. You won't notice the difference, but it's pretty close to what meat products are, and you're using plant-based products and cruelty-free. So surely people should be waking up, and I think it's going to help people transition to a vegan diet. Now, I know that people have a difficult journey with adopting a vegan lifestyle, but I think we need to. I don't know.
I respectfully challenge you. It's difficult to make the decision. I'm a recovering alcoholic with 25 years of sobriety. It was difficult for me to make the decision. I had to hit bottom. I had to have a moment of clarity. And then once I made that decision, yeah, the first couple of days were, but even immediately I had a pink cloud. I had a pink cloud because I was free. And something had shifted in my psyche, and something I had tried to do forever suddenly became doable. And I went from this thing of I won't drink today and failing, willpower, to guess what? I don't have to drink today. And that psychic shift is what we need these people to make, in the sense that the hardest part is just making the decision to do it. I hope that makes sense. I wasn't trying to contradict you, but I'm just trying to give you a different perspective. People say, oh, it's so hard. What's so hard about taking mayonnaise that's made from tortured animals and putting vegenaise that's made from perfectly beautiful plants that if you don't eat them, they rot? What is so hard about that? That is a minor inconvenience at best.
I think the difference is that when you go back to your addiction, when you woke up that day, is that you wanted to change. Therefore, that transition, of course, I'm not a recovering alcoholic, so I don't know how difficult it is to recover from addiction or to get over addiction. I dare say you probably never do get over it. Every day
it's a daily reprieve.
Exactly. But you wanted to change, and that's how do we get people to change? And I think one of the problem we're at is that people have been, I don't like to use the word brainwash, because that's almost like sort of
letting them off the hook,
being condescending towards people. Yeah. But we have been brought up to believe that meat is good for you. We need milk in order to get calcium, and we need, as a movement, to break those myths, to debunk the myths that people have. And I also think one of the reasons, we have to break those chains. And I do think they're chains. People are shackled to a particular way of living, to a particular way of existing. And some people, they just see the sheer numbers. We're talking about, when it comes to the number of animals killed in animal agriculture worldwide, we're talking about sort of 50 billion chickens, 1.5 billion pigs, 300 million cows. I mean, sometimes it's easier for people to bury their head in the sand rather than actually get on with, trying to change the world themselves. They're rather just, they don't want to deviate from the norm. And I tell people, I think we need to break it down. I think we're not asking people, we need to simplify this, because people seem to think that by asking people to go vegan, that we're somehow going back to year zero. We're asking people to live in mud huts. We're not. People can keep their phones. People can keep their cars. People can keep their computers. We're asking people, it's simple, to change what you eat, to change what you wear. And if people are under any doubt that they can make a difference, then it was been estimated that the average person in the UK who went vegan for a month will be saving 30 animals' lives. And it's not just about saving 30 animals' lives. As you know, animal agriculture is a major contributor to global warming. They'd be saving 620 pounds of carbon dioxide being emitted into the atmosphere. They'd be saving 913 square feet of forest, and they'd be saving a whopping 33,481 gallons of water. Now, people need to know those statistics, break it down, simplify it, bite-sized people so people understand.
Now, I would like to talk to you about your new project, which is Vegan Edge. Life on the Veg is your podcast. Vegan Edge is your actual latest venture. And I know that you're going to give a percentage of the proceeds from what you're selling, which are great vegan knickknacks and cups and things of that nature, to
personalized gift for vegans.
Yes. Fiona Oakes, who is part of a sanctuary. Tell us about her, and tell us about how you're going to help these sanctuaries as you also contribute to the vegan movement through your experience, through your podcast, through your social media. Tell us about your vision for Vegan Edge.
Well, I came up with the name Vegan Edge because I think being vegan, it gives you an edge in compassion. It gives you an edge in being able to save the animals and the planet, and it gives you an edge in living a healthy, hopefully long life. And I go back to how I was, or how I felt 37 years ago when I went vegan. There was a real sort of excitement as the animal rights vegan movement was taking shape. There was a real hope that we could change the world, that we could really make a real difference. Now, obviously, 37 years later, didn't quite make the changes we wanted quite so fast, but we are building, as I said in the beginning of this interview, that we are building foundations, and that's only going to get bigger and better because people are going vegan for whatever reasons, whether it's the animals, the planet, and for health. So with these two sanctuaries, that 10% of all profits from the products we sell. Fiona Oakes, an amazing woman, been vegan even longer than me. Would you believe it? So she's an ultra marathon runner, has done amazing things. The reason why she runs marathons is to highlight the plight of the animals, and that's what inspires her. That's why she runs these incredible long distance races. The other sanctuary is the Retreat Animal Rescue Centre in Kent, just south of London, and I've known the owner of that sanctuary, Billy Thompson, for about 25 years now. And it's so good to go to these sanctuaries because, you know, going back to my days as an investigator, all I ever saw was the harsh side and the disgusting side of humanity, and those images will live with me, you know, for forever. You know, there's never a moment that I don't think about those animals. And the reason why I did the investigations is I wanted to give those animals a voice. I wanted people to remember those animals. And the worst thing with any investigation was filming them and then having to walk away knowing what was going to happen to those animals. But it was my job to get out of there and to get the footage. And sometimes we were, you know, there were happy endings, like Anne the elephant, who was owned by a circus. We had a camera in there in 2011. We had a secret camera, and we over a 3-week period, we just witnessed a Romanian groom beating the poor arthritic elephant, 57-year-old female elephant, just remorselessly, day in, day out. And, you know, the owner of that circus was charged, and ultimately the circus went under for that offence. Unfortunately, you know, that these victories are few and far between. But, you know, we need those investigations because what they're doing is they're opening a doors into a world that people in those industries would rather keep secret.
Absolutely. And I have to say, of all the people in our movement, the undercover investigators are the biggest heroes. You risk your life. And I want to show this image of you. This, I believe, was in Ireland. Tell us a little bit about that mission and what you can. I know you can't say a lot. And I know that the courage it takes for you to do it, not once, but over and over again. Honestly, it's mind-blowing. I am in awe of anybody who can go into these horror hellholes where animals are being tortured, whether it's a fur farm or a laboratory breeding facility or a slaughterhouse or a factory farm, and document what's really happening so that the lies about, oh, they're happy, they don't mind it, are exposed, and then leave without being able to rescue the animals. It takes such courage, such grit, such determination. It's almost like superhuman, to be honest with you. What you've done is superhuman.
Well, thank you very much. It's very nice of you to say. I mean, regarding the Irish, there's very few. There's four mink farms in Ireland, maybe even 3 now. And in this particular fur farm, mink farm, they had electrified fencing all the way around the around the farm. So we had to be able to penetrate the electrified fencing before actually going in. And some, there was other times where sometimes you went under, sometimes you went over, sometimes you went through. On this particular occasion, we managed to make a gap in between the electrified fencing by using rubber insulating tape to insulate us from being electrocuted as we went through. So we very carefully and gingerly went through. And what we witnessed was mink in appalling conditions. Mink are far-ranging animals. They're used to living by rivers. They're territorial, but here they were confined into small barns, 2 to 3 to a very, very small sort of hutch. Lots of wounds on them because obviously they're territorial. They're confined. Their stress levels are very high, so they're attacking each other. And as long as the farmer doesn't care, as long as the actual wounds are on the legs or the tail or the head, the torso is all he needs for the fur pelts. So there were many times, yes. I mean, we risked a few things, and in different countries. My first investigation was in Vietnam, and we went into in the early hours of the morning. We managed to penetrate the perimeter of a primate breeding center. We got what we wanted, but we were actually seen, and we had to make a run for it. And it was something like out of platoon as we were running through paddy fields, through villages, ducking down when motorbikes came near, never knowing who was the friend or foe. But that was quite a trip, shall we say.
Unbelievable. And you seem very mild-mannered, kind of like a James Bond type, right? So you're just very calm, and yet you do these extraordinary things. I don't know how.
Just because I'm English, that's probably why.
Oh my gosh. So what can people do to support you and Vegan Edge? Again, we have the website right there, veganedge.co.uk. It's your newest venture. You've come out of the shadows where you've been a hero for animals, and now you're on a new journey to spread the word in the sunlight. You have worked so hard. Here you are about to go on it, or just finishing an undercover investigation. I have a feeling it was about to go on because afterwards you're probably running for the hills. You really want to spread the vegan message. So who's your primary audience? And how can we help?
I think the primary audience is people that actually are thinking about becoming vegan. I want to inspire. I want to lead by example. I want to show that I'm just a normal person. That if I can be vegan, then anyone can be vegan. The website is about inspiring, informing people that turning vegan is not only best for them, but also and best for the planet. It's better for them regarding their mental and physical health. So people can, if people click on the website, visit the website, make comments, they can follow me on Instagram at veganedge_official, see what I'm doing out there, contact me. I'd love to talk to people, and we'll go forward from there.
I love it. So I just want to say, good luck. I'm going to get tell us about some of the things that you sell on your website. Coffee cups, I know, keychain. What are some of the other things that people can carry the vegan message?
Yes, I mean, and it's not just a vegan message; it's personalized message. Every product we have can be personalized. So it's mugs, key rings, tote bags, support the environment instead of using plastic bags. It's water bottles with different designs on. All can be personalized. Put your name on there. Proudly go about. We ship to America. We ship to Europe, and we ship to every country in the world. Go on there, and you'll be, 10% of all profits will be going towards the sanctuary. So you'll be doing a great job for these sanctuaries as well.
Yes, and there you are, veganedge_official on Instagram. You've got the website right there, veganedge.co.uk. It's a great, after you've done so much over the decades, and risked your life repeatedly, not to mention risked arrest and prosecution. And I don't even know about that. Should we even discuss that? Do you want to tell us about that at all?
Well, I mean, yes, if you're asking. Yes, I mean, in the early 80s.
Answering, I don't want to bring up,
No,
anything.
I mean, to be perfectly honest, I'm not ashamed of the things I've done in the past. I mean, there was a time. Yes, I mean, there was in the early 80s and early 90s. I was infiltrating dogfighting gangs in South London, and as you might know, the dogfighting gangs are very much sort of a pastime of criminal elements, whether they're gang members, drug dealers, gangsters, basically. And for that reason, I was 27 at the time. To maintain my cover, I bought some handguns, and there was a police sting operation, and I was caught, and I spent 9 months in prison in 1992. So, you know, I looking back on it, I was 27. I was idealistic. Would I have done things differently? Yes. Was I sorry for what I did? No, because I was trying to help the animals, and I wasn't meaning to use those handguns in an offensive way. I was meaning to use them both in a defensive way in case I was attacked during my undercover investigation, and also to maintain my cover, because I was maintaining that I was a criminal as well. So I had to have some sort of weapons in order to pull that off.
Let me ask you this question. Why you? I often wonder this. Why is it that some people have the heart to see the suffering that animals endure and that other people just don't? I mean, if these are photos taken from just a couple of weeks ago of animals going to be slaughtered. Here are cows. This is where they're trying to kill the Thule elk in order to give more room to the cattle ranchers and the dairy ranchers. I mean, you see so many things that happen to animals in factory farms, high-speed horror, these animals living hellish lives in dead piles where they're literally thrown and left to die if they're too sick to walk, for example. And then, of course, there's the slaughter itself, which is horrific. And anybody who would want to pretend that they are peaceful and love-based and are contributing financially to the killing of animals by eating them or their byproducts needs to really have a reckoning about that, because their actions are out of step with their purported values. But why you? I'm always curious, like, why did you decide to make this your life's mission?
That is the $1 million question. Why me and not others? I think, you know, looking back on my life, even as a child, you know, I had that empathy. And I think that's what people that actually, let's say people that abuse animals, they don't have that empathy, whether it's towards animals, and ultimately they probably don't have it towards humans either. I've seen you detail the fact that, you know, serial killers often sort of majority of them sort of abuse animals in their lead up to killing human beings. Yes. So there has to be an empathy. Can you create that empathy? That's something a psychologist have to answer, and not me. I think, you know, and that's why I think it's important that we tackle the whole point of people going vegan from different fronts. I know there's many people who say it has to be about the animals, I understand that, because, you know, I am vegan for the 100% for the animals. But I also realize that there's people out there that don't particularly like animals and don't empathize with animals. And if that's the case, then we have to capture them for, maybe it's the environment. Maybe they love their children and they don't want to see their children, you know, suffer a global climate emergency in the very near future. And those people who don't really care about anything but themselves, then we capture them with health. So capture them on every single level. You know, I don't think any campaigning is wrong. I would never have a go at anyone for campaigning in a way that I might not campaign. I might not think it's right, but just because I don't think it's right doesn't mean it's wrong. And I think we need to cast the net as far and wide as possible and capture as many people as possible, because at the end of the day, more people turn vegan, the less animals suffer.
I would like you to address something, and I think you personally have the authority, perhaps more than anyone else, because you've risked your life repeatedly over decades to document animal cruelty and to save animals. There seems to be, especially during the pandemic, I think people are home, they're on social media, they're getting into, there seems to be a lot of sort of infighting in amongst animal groups where there could be a peaceful way to resolve the situation, and it's back and forth with, I would say, stuff that's not befitting of us. You know, as animal activists, we have to walk the walk of compassion at all times, even when we're saying, well, maybe you should do it this way, maybe you should do it that way. What is your message on that issue?
Look, infighting in the animal rights movement, vegan movement, is nothing new. Unfortunately, as human beings, we do have a tendency to nasal gaze and to cause that infighting, because people think that you know, they are right. I think we need to get away from that thing, is that I am right, you are wrong. No one is wrong when it comes to how they campaign. You know, it's, people need to take a step back, take a breath, and say, this is how I do things, and this is what I feel is the right way of doing things. It's causing, sometimes I do believe that, you know, we're causing ourselves, and if we, you know, we're causing ourselves, and by causing ourselves a rift in the movement, it's an injustice towards the animals. We have to cut it out. Now, me saying that might not necessarily make a change, but just before you do that tweet, that Instagram message, that Facebook posting, think, how is it going to help the animals? Is it really going to help the animals? Am I really right? Is that person wrong? And I think, you know, rather than, you know, the problem with social media these days is very quick to respond and maybe think afterwards that, well, maybe I shouldn't have done that. So think before you tweet, before you post.
And I would just say, let's keep our eye on the prize in terms
Exactly.
of cutting down while people make mistakes and do things that are sometimes just not advisable, like, oh, and, you know, I do that too. I make mistakes all the time. It might be spilling my coffee all over me or whatever, but I'm sure they're more significant than that. But I always try to keep my eye on who really needs to change. It's the people who run the companies that kill 10,000 pigs a day at one place. Okay. They're the ones doing the carnage. They're the ones that we have to change. And by extension, it's the people who buy those products. I feel that most of what we do is aimed at the consumer. Let's face it, the animal agriculture industry would not exist were it not for people buying meat. The dairy industry would not exist if it were not for people buying dairy products. So it's ultimately 100% a consumer issue. And I do feel consumer tastes are changing, especially in plant-based milk. We just were doing an interview with some business people who are in the frozen food section with a vegan product. And in researching that, I was looking at the Good Food Institute's review of plant-based food sales. They're skyrocketing, but plant-based milks have taken off like a rocket. And we're going to see other changes. For example, new IPOs with alternatives to, perhaps, I'm not an oracle, so don't take everything I'm saying as gospel here, but IPOs on egg alternatives, on milk alternatives. We're entering the mainstream with these products. And I feel that our focus as a movement really needs to remain on appealing to the consumers who are the ultimate, they order the hit. You know, I covered crime for 38 years, and you don't have to actually pull the trigger to be charged with murder. If you are involved in a conspiracy, and you're going to go in and commit a crime, and one person's the getaway driver and somebody else cuts the cords and the third person actually does the killing, they can all be convicted of murder if proved beyond a reasonable doubt. So anybody who supplies these companies with money, with their consumer dollars, they are complicit in the killing of those animals. This is, I think, the big disconnect. If somebody else does it, I can call myself an animal lover while I'm putting my meatloaf in the oven and petting my dog. And it's not how it works. If you are involved in the killing of that animal by paying somebody to go in there and do that, you are morally and ethically responsible. That's the thing that I think really is another message that really needs to come home. And there was a brilliant advertising campaign, I believe it was in Israel, where this young couple comes in and they say they want lamb, and somebody shows them a frozen lamb. No, I want fresh lamb. And then they bring out a little lamb and they both get horrified. Brilliant commercial. We need more of those. We need to confront people with, and maybe you heard this, I don't know if you saw this, but there was this campaign in England where a little child says in a commercial, "Daddy, I don't want to eat animals anymore." And he starts making a vegan meal. And then some aspect of the meat industry got all bent out of shape and got into a furor about this, a fervor. And they had a debate on television, and the woman defending the commercial said, "Well, they do slit their throats." And the newscaster was like, "Oh, that's inappropriate." She goes, "Hello, planet Earth, they slit their throats. You think these bacon slices are coming from bacon trees?" The disconnect was so powerful that the newscaster, the anchor, was offended that she said that these animals' throats are slit. Yes, these throats are slit. It's like that is the disconnect. Any thoughts as you move forward with your new project, which is, aimed at social media, about how we can really bring that message home? You don't get a pass on killing because you didn't hold the knife that slit the pig or the cow's throat.
Yes, you're absolutely right. There is certainly a disconnect between what's on people's plates and how it actually got to people's plates. But as I said in the beginning, I think people are, have a great human beings, have a great sort of, their main characteristics is denial. And it's up for us as a vegan movement, as an animal rights movement, to actually be reinforcing what actually happens to animals. So that Israeli advert, which shows the baby lamb being brought out as fresh meat for the couple, really brings that home. I think we have to be careful. There are some people who say we've got to hammer it home, we've got to hammer it home. But one thing we can't, there's a fine line, I think, between judging people, offending people, and making people defensive. Yes, I think people should be held accountable. I think people should be shown the images of how their meat got onto their plate, but at the same time we need to give them enough leeway to not be defensive, because if they become defensive, the actual walls come up and you'll never reach them. So yes, we need hard-hitting campaigns. They need to be sensibly done. We need to hold people responsible, at the same time giving enough leeway to come our way, because at the end of the day, we all eat meat. And if someone, maybe when I was 18, when I went vegan, was shouting every level of abuse at me, maybe I wouldn't be the person I am today. So give them enough room to come over to our side.
And one thing I want to mention, because I just saw this in my photo gallery, my buddy Ryan Nelson. This guy is so buffed. I honestly, when I first met him, I was intimidated, but he is the nicest guy, a former hunter, and 180-degree change when he woke up. There are so many now top athletes. The Game Changers was a game-changing movie, definitely on my top 3, along with Cowspiracy, What the Health, and I'll throw in our movie Countdown to Year Zero, which really posits that we have to switch to a plant-based world, or we're going to have an ecological apocalypse in a very short time because of the habitat destruction, deforestation, climate change, etc. But I do feel that with especially the younger generation, and this was borne out in the grocery shopping statistics, and the number of vegans is skyrocketing. It's really a generational thing that we're talking about here. The younger people, and you and I aren't, teenagers, but I feel like a teenager. But yeah, I do feel that it's almost like, do we continue to almost waste our breath on people who are just intransigent? And should we just focus on the younger generation? What do you think?
No, I think we have to tackle every single generation, because I don't think you can say, because the more people that go vegan, it's not just about a generational thing. Yes, it's great that so many young people are changing their diets, and they're so much more aware than they used to be, where it's about the environment, where it's about what happens to animals. But I also do think it's about, like your friend you just showed. It's about breaking down those stereotypes, because people still have this image of vegans as maybe open-toed, sandal, hippie type characters. Now, maybe in 1983 that was more correct than it is now, and films like Game Changers are breaking down those stereotypes. And with my podcast, one of the reasons why I thought I wanted to start a podcast, Life on the Veg, is that I want to break down those stereotypes. I want to interview vegans, people from all walks of life, backgrounds, careers, ethnicity, break down those, show people what we're all about. As I said, I think we're all ambassadors, and the greater the variety of vegans that you get, from athletes to business people to clergy to politicians, you're allowing people to see what we are, and you're allowing people to identify that, okay, I'm in that category, I could do that.
Absolutely. I mean, the truth is that a lot of the things that we're told, like it's tradition to eat animals, is actually, with most people, not true. There are incredible plant-based recipes and dishes that are traditional in virtually every culture. If you just look at the Mediterranean diet or the Asian diet, in fact, a lot of the ills that we're now exporting to other continents, the Western sad American diet, are causing the same kind of health problems that we're experiencing, that hadn't been experienced at all in those regions. So we really have to start going back to what is really tradition. Because Norman Rockwell did a painting with a dead turkey on a table. That means everybody's got to kill a turkey in order to enjoy Thanksgiving. No, we can think for ourselves a little bit, and get rid of those tired tropes that really serve no one. And so I do feel the pandemic is shattering a lot of that. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm not having a big Thanksgiving gathering. And I never, we had a Thanksgiving. We called it Thanksgiving.
That's a great way of putting it.
And yeah, there's plenty of sanctuaries that feed the turkeys on Thanksgiving. But we've got to reinvent. What Dr. Silas Rao, who's a brilliant systems analyst, he's the subject of this Countdown to Year Zero on Amazon Prime, the documentary. He says, Mother Nature is doing an intervention, and Mother Nature is telling the human race, you've been terrible. Go to your rooms. Think about how you've been behaving and switch it up, evolve, or you're finished as a species. Because if we don't change, we are finished as a species. If the planet becomes too hot to support life, guess what? We're in trouble. And already it was 130 degrees just a couple of weeks ago, not far from where I live. That's not a sustainable temperature. And we've got, just the implications of what's happening environmentally. We just interviewed a woman who is down in Brazil most people know about the Amazon on fire to create cattle grazing land primarily, but they're also burning up the largest wetlands in the world called the Pantanal, which is not as well known in Brazil, Bolivia, and Paraguay, also for cattle grazing. So the entire planet is going up in flames here, there, and everywhere in different manifestations. And the primary problem is our consumption of animals and their byproducts. If we had to boil down one problem, that is the main problem. We wouldn't be torturing all these monkeys right now if we lived in a plant-based society, because we wouldn't have a pandemic. So final thoughts on that. I know I've kept you a lot, and I just find it very fascinating to talk to you.
Well, I think tradition hides many ills and is used as an excuse to justify how we, not how we just necessarily just treat animals, how we treat each other. So, you know, I think tradition, but the good thing is, I think with the younger generation, they're less respectful of tradition. And I think that's a good thing. You know, I think they're saying, you know, tradition isn't everything. You know, the history isn't everything. It's the future that matters. So I think with the younger generation, we still have to, in my view, we still have to attempt to change everyone to be vegan. But I think we're going to have a lot more success with the younger generation, and they see it. They see their futures potentially in danger. And hopefully the younger generation, you know, we always say that the older generation are whiter than the younger generation. I think we need to turn that on its head. I think the younger generation are becoming a lot whiter than the older generation. We have a lot to learn. Let's get out there. You know, Extinction Rebellion, Animal Rebellion, they're taking to the streets. They've had enough, and they're not going to take any more.
On that note, I want to say you are my hero, Rob Cogswell. Check out Vegan Edge. The website is right there, veganedge.co.uk. I am excited to see what you do with this new venture. I'm sure it's going to be very exciting and convert so many people and help save the planet. Thank you so much, Rob.
Thank you, Jane, for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Talk soon.
Bye.
Bye.